In this video, we're going to be going over adding in some sliding effects. So we have the tank recoil script already created. Now we're going to be adding some visual effects. These are not going to be included within any scripts. We're just going to add some particle effects so that as our tank slides around, we're going to have some sparks and some smoke appear. We're also going to be going over modifying this a bit further so we can slow it down even further. So let's get started. Let's take a look at the particle effects. So I did include a couple of particle effects in the particle effects folder. They are prefabs. So we have one that's called dust trail and one is called sparks. So let's add in the dust trail. Now, both the dust trail and the sparks are based off the movement of this object. So if I move this around, you can actually see it appear. And this is based off world space. So if I move this around, you can see it actually does follow the direction. We're going to be applying two of these to each side of the tank. And this is going to be used to add a visual effect so that as we move around, as we're sliding around, we're going to see that smoke appear. So we're going to add in two dust trails. Let's open up the tank. We'll drag the dust trail underneath the treads. And I'll reset the position. So we'll set that to 0, 0, 0. And I'll switch to local up there. Let's also switch this to center. So it looks like it's rotated. It's going to set this to 0 and 0. There we go. And basically what I want to do is I want to have one right in the middle here and one on the other side in the middle as well. Now you want to have it so it's slightly above the ground, otherwise it'll clip through the ground and we won't see much of it. Let's add this right about here, and it doesn't have to touch the tank, just have it right next to the tank itself. Okay, we'll duplicate that and then we'll add it to the other side. Okay, I think that'll work. Now let's give this a quick try. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit play and we'll see how this works. Okay, that works. Now you may want to make this a little bit bigger in terms of the size. So let's get out of play mode. Now an easy way to adjust the scale is just to select both of them and adjust the actual scale right here. We're not going to be modifying the actual scale of the particles. Let's just set this up by 2 by 2 by 2. And again, we'll give this another quick test. Okay, that looks a little bit better. So I think I'll keep it at that size. Now you will see that we don't actually slow down very quickly. We can see that we're still sliding just a bit. And since we are going to be moving around a bit, it's going to affect how the particle system works, because you can see that as we're moving very, very slightly, we see that smoke appear. It pops in very, very slightly at the very end of our sliding. Okay, so we are going to fix the problem with the sliding in a moment, but first let's add in the sparks effect as well. We're going to do the same thing that we did with the dust trail. So let's add in the sparks, and these sparks are very, very similar to the dust trail. So again, I'm going to reset the position, and it's actually reset the entire transform. You can do that by left clicking on the gear icon, going to reset. And we'll drag this underneath the treads. And again, reset. Now this is based off a specific direction. So if I move this left and right, you can see that the sparks actually appear as I'm moving this. Now, if I open up the particle effect under the shape, you can see it's pointing in this direction. So we want this to be at an angle off to the side. So I'm going to rotate this so it's facing the opposite direction of the tank. And then I want to rotate this upward a bit. Let's go with a negative 45 and then a negative 90. Now that angle may be a bit extreme, but we'll test it out. Now, unfortunately, because we are at a weird angle within our game world, it may be a little bit difficult to align this, but just do your best. And basically, we want to line this up with the rest of the tank as well, right where the smoke is at as well. Okay, something like that will be good. I'll duplicate this, and we'll add it to the other side. Okay, there we go. So I went with a positive 90 for the y-axis. That's all we need to do to modify this. It's going to keep the original rotations for the negative 45. And for some reason, there's a 0.001 there. I'll cut that out. Okay, so now we have our dust trails and the sparks. Again, let's go and test this out in the game view. Okay, there we go. Now we have some sparks. So we have these sparks and the smoke playing side by side. So as we're moving around, we get that nice sparking effect. And we also see our smoke. Now, one thing you'll notice, if I just move again, you can see that it's still playing the particle effects, even after it looks like the tank is slowing down, but it's still moving just enough to actually play the particle effect. So what we want to do is we want to modify the drag of the object, in this case the tank. So let's go back to the tank itself. We can adjust the drag of the rigid body. I'm going to go ahead and close up some of these components in here. So right now the drag is at 1. What I'll do is actually switch my game view. I'll leave maximize on play unchecked. We'll click on play and we'll modify this. Okay, so as I start moving, these are the default values. If I increase the drag all the way up to 2, it's going to slow down even further. Now let's keep modifying this until we no longer see those particle effects playing, as the tank should be slowing down quite a bit. So I'll set the drag up to 3. Okay, so I think that works there. You may want to modify it even further. Now you can see that as we do increase the drag, it is going to affect how far we can actually push out. So what you can then do is either adjust the mass, which I don't recommend doing because then you need to remodify the drag to that new mass, or we can also increase the recoil force. So let's increase that to 1,000. Okay, so that looks much better. Okay, so there we go. Now we added in some slide effects to our tank, so we now have more visually appealing movement with our tank. And we also modified it so it actually slows down a bit further.